All right, well, we're going to get this fun party started. Welcome. Good evening, everyone. Can you all hear me? Yes, thank you for the response. Audience response is very important tonight, everyone. We're going to become best friends tonight, okay? So thank you for coming. My name is Tara Lynn Smith, and I am a proud Penn State alum, as well as a board member from the Advertising and Public Relations Alumni Network Board of the amazing Bellisario College of Communications right here at Penn State. I am thrilled to welcome you tonight to our panel event, True Life Media in 2022. We have a fantastic panel featuring Penn State Bellisario College of Communications alumni. And before we go any further, as a graduate myself, and because I have to be the first one to talk to you, I have to do this, so just indulge me. We are
Penn State.
Okay, guys, come on. We got to come back with a little bit more. We are
Penn State.
One more time. We are
Penn State.
Thank you. All right, it just warms my heart. Thank you. All right, so you're going to learn more about our amazing panelists during the program tonight, but for now, I do want to briefly introduce them to you, as well as our special moderator. So let's get to our panelists. First, I'd like to welcome Serena Namgoom. Serena is a beauty sales assistant at Dotdash Meredith in New York City. She is a media marketing professional with a demonstrated history of working in the media industry, and her expertise includes media analysis, media buying, public relations management, and leadership. So welcome, Serena.
Hi, nice to meet you guys.
Next up, please help me welcome Joseph Njeko. Joseph is an account executive at Maven Communications in Philadelphia. Joseph works with Maven's law, healthcare, and construction clients to provide results-driven public relations and integrated communication services. He really is a jack of all trades. Welcome, Joseph.
Hello, everybody. Nice to meet everyone.
And Rachel Ferguson is our third panelist. Rachel is Visit Philadelphia's Chief Innovation and Global Diversity Officer. In this role, she's charged with helping to grow the leisure tourism segment by identifying and leading marketing programs focused on multicultural and multi-generational travelers and new geographic markets. Welcome, Rachel. Last, but certainly not least, let's welcome our moderator, Suzanne Scholler. Suzanne is a direct response and performance marketing account executive for the Game Show Network in New York City. She is responsible for $30 to $40 million in ad sales a year, and some of her most well-known clients are United Healthcare, Wayfair, Progressive, and Procter & Gamble, just to name a few. In addition to her day job, Suzanne is also one of my fellow board members on the Ad PR Network Board. So without further ado, let's give a strong round of applause to our amazing panelist and moderator.
Well, thank you guys so much for coming. We really appreciate it. It's a smaller group tonight, which is even better for you guys because it's more opportunities for you guys to ask questions and network with us and really make some solid connections. We have a great representation of the tri-state area. So without further ado, I am going to ask these lovely alumni some questions. So my first question is, I'm sure what everyone is kind of wondering, how did you guys break into the business? How did you land that first job, that first internship, and what would be some tips of the trade that you could recommend? Joey, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. I think for me it was kind of like a weird journey because I came into Penn State as a criminology major. Quickly found out that is not what I wanted to do, and kind of started joining organizations and things like that. And that's kind of how I stumbled upon public relations and fell in love with it. So just kind of making, doing a lot of networking, connecting, kind of led to my first internships because I started talking with a lot of different people on kind of what they were already doing or internships they already had. So I would get coffee with them, meet them. Everyone's so nice, obviously, as a Penn State alumni, and they would, put me in front of the right people. And my first internship, I got through that, and it was a very easy process. It's just kind of, making those connections and networking is just really important.
And did you email people? Did you LinkedIn people? How could students today kind of reach out and really connect with people?
I think just through my friends, I was telling everyone what I was interested in. at the time it was like entertainment and music I was heavily interested in. And they had, I just, got cell phone numbers, so texted people, email addresses, and reached out to them that way. And obviously they were very receptive.
Nice. Penn State alumni always say yes for a coffee. All of us and people in the audience, we always say yes. So please, please email us. Speaking of that, that leads into Serena, which she can tell you how she got her first job.
Yes, so I work for Dotdash Meredith, which is a digital and print publisher, actually #1 biggest American publisher. So I first started from media buying, now I'm in media sales. So how I got my first job in media buying was actually through Suzanne. So I didn't know her before, and then I was always keeping my eye on Bob Martin's emails because he sends out a bunch of opportunities through the student email, and then she actually promoted a job through Bob, and then Bob forwarded it out to everybody in comm. And so I reached out to Bob and Suzanne at the same time, asked for a time to talk. I did it to everybody else too, on LinkedIn. I would go to my top companies that I wanted to work for. I would see so-and-so from your school works in this company, and I would reach out to them separately and introduce myself. Hey, I'm Serena, I'm interested in this role, that role. They would usually say yes, like Suzanne said, to everything. If you're Penn State alumna, they would usually say yes. So that's how I got my connections through everybody, but for my first job specifically was through Suzanne, and then I eventually wanted to switch to ad sales, so now I'm in sales, but I started off from an agency side.
Thank you. Rachel?
Oh, she didn't want to break her nail. So I had my first internship actually through in-state college. I interned for several nonprofits, and I actually worked with Tara in some of the student organizations that we either started or existing clubs. And I would definitely encourage everyone to participate in that capacity, because the hardest thing that I remember was when I was looking for internships, I was surprised that people still wanted you to have experience. And to me, it was like, wait a minute, you're supposed to give me that experience. I just have the book knowledge that I'm receiving. And so I wanted an internship that no matter where I was, you heard the name of the company, whether it's MTV or Pepsi. That was important to me, and I thought that would give me a great start. And I attended a diversity internship fair, and CBS, the television station, they were in attendance. And so I made sure I truly made my mark there. Through that internship program, and then later when they had a job opening as a public affairs coordinator, I was able to start a year later.
Great. So I'll ask Rachel, are you doing what you thought you would be doing? And I asked that because I thought when I graduated I was going to be a copywriter at an ad agency, and I now do ad sales, which is very different, both great things, but very different. And I kind of fell into ad sales and realized I liked it. And I think that happens to a lot of us. We think, we really want to do one thing, and then we find ourselves doing another. So was that your case?
So I've always had the mindset I never wanted to be placed in any type of box. I didn't want you to be able to put a label on me and say, oh, she's only doing X, Y, Z. So I knew I wanted to study advertising, public relations. I knew I loved the television side, but I always wanted to make sure that I was really learning and immersing myself in other departments. I knew that I liked being able to pitch, but for television, it was much more interesting being the gatekeeper. Then I realized, wait, I like creativity, so maybe it's more of the marketing. So everything that I'm doing now, I get to hit every one of the components of what I liked early on in my career. So if I'm participating in television interviews or giving a keynote address or coming up with a marketing campaign, to me it all fits in, but once again, you never can place me in just one box or one bubble, and I like that. So yes, I feel like I am doing as far as my trade, but now I'm in the hospitality industry and leisure tourism, but the marketing side.
That's really interesting, and I think, Serena and Joey touched on this too. Serena started off on the agency side, and then she went to the sales side, and Joey thought he wanted to do criminal justice, and then found himself in PR. So can you guys talk to kind of how you fell into what you're doing now? Serena, do you want to maybe, talk about why you were interested in making the, switch from buying to, selling?
So honestly, as a student, it's super hard to know what different sectors in media that you can go into. I had no idea, even if I was talking to Bob or all the time, like my professors all the time, like it's just super hard to grasp, especially looking at the job description. It's not really accurate. You will not, I will only get like probably 40% of what it actually is. So in my head, like I thought agency was very creative, and I got to like voice my opinion, and that's what I really wanted to do. And I didn't really understand my drive necessarily. I just liked the fact that media is connected to creativity, and like basically just like showing what I have in my mind in a form of media. But I realized that agency is more, or at least for my side, because I did direct TV advertising agency, so it was a lot of like Excel, a lot of admin stuff, and also yes, in the beginning you will do a lot of admin stuff for any job, and that's my motivation. Therefore, I want to like move my jump to sales, and that's how I moved up to a new company.
Yeah, I think that's so important, because when you intern, when you graduate, you're so excited to be somewhere, and you're so excited to finally be doing something, that it's important to really take a step back and say, okay, do I like what I'm doing? Do I not like what I'm doing? And maybe if you're like, this isn't the right fit, there's so many ways to kind of make switches. And I think, Joey, you can even speak to the new agency in the pandemic, joining, and the differences between, what you started doing and what you're doing now.
Yeah, so I, during the pandemic, kind of transitioned to a different job, which was, just a challenge in itself. I was doing, higher level work than at the previous agency I was at. So on top of learning a lot of the new responsibilities I had to take over, I was also trying to acclimate to just like not meeting anyone in person until, the fall pretty much, because that's kind of when we started going back to work. So kind of like managing the job responsibilities with, also trying to form relationships with the people I'm working with was very, difficult. But, I was able to get around it because I would, do one-on-ones with a lot of different people to get acclimated to, all the new clients I was overseeing and the responsibilities I had to take over. So, definitely choosing a place that has a good company culture is very, I know people are like very money driven, but that isn't everything. I also, when I look for a new job, I definitely want to make sure they have a good company culture, because you gotta like the place that you work. So they made a very good transition for me when I accepted that job.
And I think that's so important, because in addition to your responsibilities, you're also who you work with, and how you work is a big part of the job too. So thinking about that, Rachel, I know you kind of touch on so many different things. What would you say some of your favorite, day-to-day job responsibilities are?
I would say I really love my job because it's not the same from day to day. Coming here, I had a press inquiry that I needed to deal with. But at the same time, my team may be hosting a press trip, or we know that the Roots are announcing their 2-day festival, and so our social media team wants to make sure that they're live and fast and getting things up. Or you hear the newscast, the Sixers, have a new player and you're like, oh gosh, let's make sure we have creative and we're supporting that. And all of that is a part of us being a megaphone for the city, for our region. I'm fortunate enough to, market one of the best cities in the world. And I love my job because we get to serve as a megaphone for our region. And so it's never day to day. I might know I have a series of meetings or, meeting with my team, but it doesn't stay the same outside of, hey, Mondays and Wednesdays we have an all-staff meeting.
And since you are such, the crucial part of the team, kind of as the leader at the top, what would you say to students looking for an internship, for a job, when you're hiring on your team that has to balance so many different things? What are some of the top things that you look for when you hire?
I love this question. This is a really good question. So for me, like I said, internships are so important, and I'm so fortunate with how I was able to get my start. That's why I started last year Visit Philadelphia, our diversity fellowship program. And this is a 6-month program to really give people perspective from every department within our country, our company. And for me, what I look for in a fellow is the same thing that I would look for in an employee. And that is, you can, be top tier, great performer, meet every deadline, but you're not trustworthy. And when I say trustworthy, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, that I can trust that you're going to care about the other colleagues. I can trust that you're going to care about our brand, our values, our culture. And for me, you can't have two extremes. Even if you're the sweetest person and wonderful, but you're not doing what you need to get those assignments done, that's a problem. And so I look at that with the same thing with our fellowship program, because to me that's a pipeline. Those are jobs that I want you to either stay with our company or within our industry or region. I want to help you find your full-time job.
And I think that's so important because, as Serena spoke about, the connections you make at your internship, at your first job, at your second job, they stay with you for your whole career. I talk to people now that I talked to when I was a sales assistant. I talk to people now that, when I had an internship, I can still call and say, hey, will you be a reference? So I think, what you just touched on is just really important, that you really are looking for people that you can trust and, really want to work. And I think for you, Joey and Serena, you guys are a little bit more mid-career level, but you're kind of seeing on the other side now, okay, I've done the entry-level job, I'm mid-level in my career. Can you kind of touch to what you look for now, kind of as you hire on teams or help hire, what you're kind of looking for in people? Joey, you can go first.
Sorry.
No, that's okay.
I think one important thing I think is you definitely need to find, when hiring someone, you definitely need to find someone who's very passionate about the industry, because I think being passionate, really, is a big motivator, and it drives someone to do very, good work, and they'll go above and beyond for you. Obviously they need to have, all those accolades or requirements that, a job posting might have, but if the passion isn't there, I just don't know long term if that's something they'll want to stick with. And that kind of goes back to Rachel's point too about a person being trustworthy as well. I think you need to be passionate, trustworthy, and a pretty hard worker as well, because if you're not, you'll probably I don't want to say burn out or anything like that, but you might look on to a different opportunity or move somewhere else.
So trustworthy, passionate. Serena, what can you add?
Yeah, so I just graduated from Penn State 3 years ago, so I'm pretty new. I asked my boss from Dotdash Meredith, which is my current company, of why she hired me, because Dotdash Meredith was my like dream job. I've always grown up reading Meredith magazine since I was like 7, so I've always wanted to be here, and I was super happy when I got my job. So I asked her like right away, why did you choose me out of like everybody else? And what she told me was that she always looks for personal branding. So branding, especially from a sales side, is very important, because like that's just how you show your brand to other clients and to agency people. Same thing, like you just have to brand yourself very well to the recruiters, because you could have this very similar experiences with other college kids, and how you brand yourself, your attitude, your personality, your confidence is gonna show through, and that's really key. I mean, yes, you have to be very good at your job for sure. I mean, you have to meet your deadlines, like you shouldn't be late, or you shouldn't be late in assignments, all of those things. I think that's very basic. If you wanna get a good job, you have to do well, period. And that's not something that you have to like remember, that's very obvious. So I feel like on top of that, your personality and your passion like has to show through, and something that has to be something that's different from other people. Like you have to be very memorable, and you have to put yourself out there. You can't be shy, because there are many other people who are doing the most, and you got to do the most as well. So
I think those are such good points, and I think at any point in your career, networking just never ends. You know, I network, everyone on this stage network, you guys I'm sure are hearing that just network word over and over. And I'm curious to the people on the panel today, if there's a genuine way that you go about networking. You know, for me, I try to reach out to Penn State people in the industry on LinkedIn at companies that I like, or at things that I'm not, well versed in, digital media, podcast media, things that I don't know as much about, and I try to ask them questions. But sometimes I still struggle with just trying to be genuine and just saying like, hey, I'm interested in what you do. So I'm curious if you guys on the stage have any tips of wisdom to impart to our audience on that.
The first thing that comes to mind for me is making sure that when you're reaching out to people, that it's regular enough that they don't forget who you are or where they met you, but it's not every time you need something. Where a lot of professionals, you'll post something on LinkedIn or your Instagram about something that's a major project, a major win, or what you're currently working on and advancements with your team. Why not ask, hey, do you need any volunteers? Why not make sure you send around the holidays, an email with a little greeting where you don't necessarily need anything, but it's, oh, hi Joe, how are you? It's great to see you again, putting a smile on someone's face. And then when I go to events, and a lot of times, you may be you don't know the other people that are there. I've done this since I was in college, where I pick one color, and that's the color that I'm not leaving this event until I speak to, the 3 people I see wearing a red shirt.
That's such a great idea.
Like I have done that early on, sometimes when my friends didn't want to attend an event, or if I don't feel like going to an event. And it's like, just pick a color and come on.
Like you have to be very detail oriented in terms of that. Like make sure you don't miss any spellings, or like at least do a little bit of research about the company that you're asking for. I genuinely see so generally when people do some research about my company where I work, then I pay more attention to that, because I see effort. So even if you don't reach out to me regularly, I always notice that if you put a little bit of effort, and also just genuine personality, like I said, always shows through. If you copy and paste it, it's very, very obvious. So when you message, genuinity, your personality is, I think, very important.
I would agree with that. I feel like I get flooded with resumes after a Success in the City or a career fair, and I always answer the ones that have my name spelled right, or that have Game Show Network in them, or saying, hey, I'm interested in X, Y, and Z area. I'm interested in ad sales. I'm interested in production. So then it feels like there's a little bit of effort in. So I agree with that, and I would strongly recommend that. Joey, anything to add?
I definitely agree with both of those, takes on networking. I guess really the only thing is I do think being very genuine and professional and reaching out to someone is very important. And I think like having I know sometimes it's difficult through LinkedIn to have your personality kind of shine through because you're messaging someone, but if you can some way prompt get your personality through that, or even be like, I'm really interested in this company, or in what you do, can we schedule a time to call or get coffee, even Zoom meeting, even though I'm sure everyone's sick of Zoom meetings at this point, anything, because that allows you to really get to know that person, and I think face-to-face interactions are the best way to network. Even if I know we just, we're technically, still in the pandemic and it's difficult, but a phone call or virtual Zoom conference, I've found to be very, successful, and I've actually helped a number of Penn State students get their first job just for them reaching out. Or me, even reaching out to professors, just seeing hey, my company's hiring, do you have someone who, is looking for a job or, is interested in, learning about what, my company is or what, public relations questions, anything. I think that's important, face-to-face interaction.
I agree, and I think the best thing that comes after that is, of course, the follow-up. And I know for me, anyone that I meet, I would expect a thank you email. I have written thank you emails. I've also handwritten thank you notes. I know that sounds so old school, but for certain jobs where it's really competitive, a handwritten note, you just don't forget those. So I would ask everyone on the panel, you're getting these thank you notes, you're interviewing people, we've talked about how to get in the door, how you kind of knew what you wanted to do, your favorite aspects of the job, now kind of sealing the deal, what's in a thank you note for you that you hire that person?
A thank you note is everything. The jobs that I had early on, or oh my goodness, I remembered when my internship at CBS first ended. And I had thank you notes for the anchors, for the head of engineering, the communications director, the executive assistant, the security guard, everyone. Because you never know when you're going to run into these people again, or they're going to call you and say, hey, I heard that there's an opening in this department. That happened with me. Where, and the world's so small. Later, after I left CBS in Philadelphia, once I was a public affairs coordinator, later in my career, I went to CBS New York. The engineer from CBS Philadelphia eventually went to New York. The executive assistant, and the communications director, their boss, the president of CBS television stations, well, I reported to him in New York. So you just never know, and just taking the time, because so many people don't do it, it stands out. And for every employee that has, given me a beautiful note, or, the fellow we just had, I save those. And not because I'm a hoarder, but because someone took the time to select a card, and you never know where they're going to go in their career, and I remember that. And it's so often, through, you talk about work-life balance and getting to know people, and it's hard. But when you have those human connections, that's what makes the difference.
I would agree with that. I will add that there was a job that I went out for at Hulu, and I ended up being very close but not getting it. But that person who was hiring, her husband was hiring a game show, and I ended up getting the job at game show, and I wrote her handwritten thank you note. So I'm just saying, everyone knows everyone. But Serena, do you have anything to add to that?
Yes, so I met Michael, the EVP of Meredith. So previously Meredith, now we got acquired, so Dr. Meredith. So he is actually friends with Bob Martin and also my EVP, and is very, very higher up in my team, in sales team. He was also in Success in the City 3 years ago. I met him there, and I ended up actually working for him a year later. It's like everyone really knows everyone, like Suzanne said. And I still talk about, till this day. Even yesterday, Michael actually texted me saying, like, Bob wants you to come to Success in the City, like, let's go together. So I was like, okay, sure. And it's like, I was telling him, I was here on the other side as a student 3 years ago. Now I'm on the opposite side, like hiring. It's like really amazing. And then I met people there while I still keep all their business cards. They still work in those companies, and I still contact them, like Pinterest, Snapchat, like all these people in the event. So if you guys are going to Success in the City, like please go, it's very important. Also they have like virtual events too. So like important to really network, and I also sent thank you emails to every single person that I spoke to. I also sprayed perfume on my resume. I don't know if that made any difference, but I also like just wanted to really like be out there because I really wanted to be in beauty. So now I work in beauty. So it's like really just follow-up emails, and I bothered Michael like all the time because I really wanted to work for Meredith. So I was like, hey Michael, like Merry Christmas, hey Michael, Happy New Year, like hey Michael, like whatever, like all the time. And then he always remembered me. So when the position opened, he emailed me first because he remembered me. Oh, she's the girl from Success in the City. Oh, she's the girl who sent me like 500 emails. Like he just automatically remembered me. So very important to keep up with the network. Keep emailing them. They're not going to be bothered. We actually love students emailing. I love that. Like whenever I get messages, emails, I'm like, oh, like I feel so like happy. Like these passion, like the energy, the effort, we love it. So always don't hesitate to email. You know, just shoot an email. Always.
So definitely handwritten notes, any thank you note, personalization, passion, follow-up, all that's important. Joe, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I agree. That's all important. And you know, I think it just goes to show like how genuine of a person you are and how much you care to go that extra step to especially like handwrite a thank you note or email someone. It just shows that you're putting that extra effort that maybe someone that you're going interviewing against or a different candidate, like that could be the difference maker of why you get a job or why that other person doesn't get the job, because you kind of just showed that you went that extra mile. I mean, for me, anytime like I meet someone or get a connection, make a connection, I'll send them a follow-up email, thanking them. Always just making sure I'm in like not constant contact, but like kind of trying to find that like medium of like not like over bothering someone, and then also making sure they don't forget you as well. So just maintaining those relationships, and even if you didn't get the job that you want, still I think you should still try to remain in contact with that person, because you never know when there might be an opening or anything like that. So don't try to like burn that bridge if you're like, oh my gosh, like I can't believe I didn't get the job, like on to the next thing. Like obviously yes, go on to the next thing, but still remain in contact with that person. I think is very important.
Yes, definitely. And I think that goes really both ways. You'll see, when you kind of get into the industry, that your old assistant, she could be the VP of some new media company. Just happened to be today. So it's really important to just everyone that you work with from the top down to just be courteous, to just really have that genuine relationship, because no one knows what's going to happen tomorrow. Companies are merging all the time, and it's important to know. So that being said, I cannot believe 45 minutes has gone so fast, but we're kind of entering our last 15 minutes. And we've talked about a lot of things today. We've talked about networking, how to get your foot into the door, kind of how to follow up and say thank you and be memorable. So kind of just taking a minute to think about, your job, your industry, and these lovely students who came to spend their Thursday night of St. Patty's weekend with us. Thank you. Any last words of wisdom that you would impart? Like, I wish someone had told me this. I wish I had known this.
And as you're figuring it out and you hit those goals, it should never be, okay, I'm done, I'm great. Go ahead and strive for the next goal and see, what else can you achieve. I'm so, I don't want to say surprised, but I'm just happy that I've never settled. That I saw some of my mentors or my, a boss or what have you, or a supervisor, oh, their job is interesting, let me find out more about that job. I would love to do that, and hitting milestones much earlier than I may have anticipated, but not settling. And just be true to yourself and be authentic for who you are is extremely important.
That's a great point, and one that a lot of people, when they're trying to get a job, forget. So thank you. Serena?
Yeah, so I would say do not be afraid, for sure. Like, the world is really yours and your possibility is like unlimited. Like, I was so afraid, so scared, because at that time I had to figure out my visa situation and everything. Since I'm an international student, I had to come, my family all live in Korea. I'm the only person in the States. And I always wanted to live in New York City, didn't know how. How am I gonna get to New York City? My family's all in Korea, no one's gonna help me move, no one has ever helped me do anything in the States. So I was very scared, but I somehow made it to New York City. I never gave up. A lot of doors had closed right in front of me all the time because of my visa situation. I had to miss so many opportunities, and I cried so many times, and I don't really cry normally. So I was very, very sad many, many times, but don't be afraid. All of the effort, all the thoughts you're putting into yourself, all of the things that you're seeing, learning, hearing in Penn State, it's all going to help you. It's all going to prepare you for everything that you want, and I truly believe that. I'm still believing in that since I'm only in my 3rd year of my career. I truly believe that all the energy that you're putting into your mind, they all come true. Always reach out to people, always remember all the things that we said. Just be hopeful and always try hard and just ask for help, seek for help all the time. You go to school that has the greatest alumni network. I have so many people at my company work in Penn State too. Everywhere, ever in the industry, any job, any company in New York City, anywhere in the world, there's Penn State everywhere. So don't be afraid. The door is always open for you guys. You guys got it. Don't worry. Yeah.
I love it. I love the positivity. Joey?
Yeah, kind of going off that same note, I think perseverance is a huge thing. I remember, being in your shoes, because it wasn't that long ago. Graduation came, I didn't have a job yet. A lot of people I knew didn't have jobs yet. And it can be a scary thing because you're like, well, what's next? Because, I'm not going to classes anymore. So, really kind of basically at that time, it's almost like a full-time job, just applying to as many places as you can and make those connections like we were saying. That is pretty much, if not more important than, filling out that application, is, trying to get your foot in the door that way by reaching out to someone at a job you just applied with, or maybe even before applying, reach out to them and be like, hey, I'm thinking about applying, I'd love to chat with you and learn more about, what you do, what the company is, how you like your work and stuff like that. Just going that kind of extra mile for that. And another thing I also think is important is reading the news. Make sure every time I get up in the morning, very early, watch news, read all kinds of different news, trying to educate myself on everything that's currently happening and all the different sectors I work in. Subscribe to those newsletters, read a lot of different trade publications, because that's really going to matter, and you basically have to make yourself an expert in whatever field that you're working with is very crucial. And that can lead to a lot of media pitching too, because you're like, oh, my client can comment on this or comment on that. So, reading news is also really important. And I remember in Com 370 with Steve Manuel, he really pushes reading the news, and he made all of us read USA Today. So, he's doing that for a reason. So make sure you definitely read the news.
Well, I want to say thank you to our panel today. Everyone kind of traveled here to be here, and we really appreciate it, so thank you again. I'd love to open it up to questions. If anyone has any, you can just raise your hand. We're very casual. Don't be shy. Yes.
So for the transitions that you guys made inside your job, was that something that was an opportunity that just came up, or was it something that you actively wanted to change?
So she is asking about transitions in your job. Is it something that came up or actively you wanted to change?
Yeah, so I can speak to that. I actively really wanted to change, and I have actually been maintaining my network prior to my transition, not because I was thinking that I was going to move anyways. I just kept it, and then the opportunity came up when I was ready at the same time. But I was lucky, but not lucky at the same time, because those things happen all the time. So that goes off on just maintain your network, and also on LinkedIn you can do a notification setting where if you're interested in a job, they push out notifications every day if they post a new job. So that's very important. But if you're trying to move to another sector of media per se, you would have to be looking for, I would say, 3 to 4 months prior, because then you need some time to really read the news. Also, if you're working in beauty, for example, in my industry, you would have to know all the merger and acquisitions that have happened, like all the transitions in the business, Wall Street Journal, a business, very important section. I read it every single day. You have to learn, study, and also reach out to people before. So I would say plan it out beforehand, but also always be ready to move and jump if you are planning to.
Rachel, Joey, anything to add to that?
For me, the next stage in every part of my career, it has required me to move on to the next position or the next company. But I'm also the boomerang employee. So I started at CBS 3 in Philadelphia. I then went to visit Philadelphia. I then went to CBS 2 in New York, and now I'm back at Visit Philadelphia. So it's interesting. I do though stay at a job or a company 4 years. New York was the longest, 7 years. I've been 3 years now. But it goes back to what I was telling you earlier, being true to yourself. That I've left when it's, you know what, in this role, in this position, I've conquered it, or I'm no longer feeling fulfilled, or I'm ready for the next. And for the first time in my career now, I can say, oh my goodness, I absolutely love my job. And that is an amazing, amazing feeling. So always know your worth and know when it's time to move on, but it doesn't mean that you're not going to go back. It just might mean that you're getting that next paycheck too.
Yeah, I think that's really true. Did you have anything to add?
Yeah, no, I was just saying, when I transitioned, I just knew, the current role I was at in company, I just wasn't being challenged anymore, and there wasn't any room to move up in the company. So I kind of knew at that point that it was time to just kind of switch to a different company. And just one more thing that, for transitioning in your company and wanting, asking for a promotion. If that's something, you say you love that company, you don't want to move somewhere else, and you want to move up in the company, having that conversation with, either your boss, for me it was my CEO, just sitting her down and basically I went through every single thing I did that year for the company, because I kind of, jotted down everything I've been doing, stuff that, I created for the company, or, kind of my above and beyond type things I was doing, just to because sometimes especially a CEO, they're very high level things, so they're not going to know, you know, everything you do day to day. And when I told her that, she's like, absolutely, you need a promotion, so I was promoted the next day.
I think that's so important. I remember when I was at my first company pitching for my promotion, and it was really pitching for my promotion. It was talking to every single account executive on the floor, whether they were hiring for a sales planner or not, and just saying, hi, I'm Suzanne, nice to meet you. So I think, you know, through all of our transitions, there's so many different ways to do it, whether it's inside the company or outside the company, but they do all require you doing your homework, for sure. Any other questions? Yes.
I know we talked about persevering and challenge, but what is one maybe big challenge you can pick out that really propelled you to like where you are? You know, I think we could go through our own lives and I faced a challenge here and here, but can you pick out like one that you know you think of almost every other day because it really impacted you to be where you are?
I actually can, if you guys want to take a minute. So I think for me, bouncing that off the transition question, when I got promoted finally from a sales assistant to a sales planner, I missed 1 or 2 jobs because I hadn't introduced myself to everyone on the floor. So here I was doing what I thought was like this great job for my bosses, and I was on time, and I was punctual, and I was trustworthy, and I was doing all the things in a position again where I'm gonna get turned down because I didn't ask someone for coffee. So that was it for me. Anyone?
That was an excellent example, thank you.
Oh.
Thank you for buying us some time.
No problem.
What comes to mind is what we've experienced for the last 2 years. You know, we all talk about it within our individual industries, about the art of the pivot, and how you might have had plans, you know, or what you're going to do with your budget for the next year, or campaigns you're going to run, and everything just came to a halt. And learning or just being reminded that you have to be able to keep a company going, that you have to be strong enough, even though at the same time we were all experiencing the pandemic that's still going on, but in different ways. And so for the first time, whatever layers you may have had, people had to be inside your home. People had to see, you know, my 4-year-old, 3-year-old running around, you know, trying to potty train and everything else because of Zoom. And just learning to be kinder to one another. There's so many takeaways that are a result of the pandemic that I think I'll always remember going forward in my career, where before it may have been more about the deadlines or the wins or the awards for projects, but remembering the people and remembering, once again, going back to how important the culture of your company and, you know, what do you really stand for is extremely important. And how do you get through crises together as a company? I think that's a key takeaway for me and something I will never forget as a result of everything we've experienced in the last 2 years.
Great example. Serena, Joey?
So going off of Rachel and Suzanne, I started working from 2019 September. So like I only had 6 months until the pandemic really started. And then from my previous company, we went through M&A, so like a merger and acquisition. So so there was like a major layoff, and after 6 months, experiencing a layoff was like traumatizing because I really was so scared. Like I just was like, what am I gonna do? I was like 3. I was just like very scared. I'm like what am I gonna do? Like what am I gonna do now? I'm like alone in the city with no family, and if I lose my job, like I'm like, what's gonna happen to me? So that was very difficult, but then I realized like from that experience, and also when Meredith got acquired by Dotdash, so now it's Dotdash Meredith, we also had another M&A. So we also had a major layoff of like 200 people, like 3 weeks ago actually. So I've experienced 2 M&As in my 3-year career already, which is crazy. And I realized that going off of what Suzanne said also, like political culture in the company is like important. Like you have to know, how do I say this? Like you have to know who you should talk to, who you should be close to, and all of that stuff. Like it's also a small society. Like company, yes, you make money and you also work, but it's also where people like interact together. So you have to understand like those interactions and those relationships that you have to maintain. You have to be very smart in the things that you say and how you say things and stuff like that, because that all comes down. I mean, yes, if you're very exceptional at your job, most likely you're not gonna get fired or anything like that. But let's say everyone's very good, then who are they going to like lay off? You know, it's all about relationships. So that's also very important to remember, not only to be very good at your job, to always like network, even in your company, constantly have to network. Yeah, so that's important.
Joey, anything to add?
I kind of already touched on this, but probably the biggest challenge that I kind of look back on is, you know, really that first job search out of college. And, you know, I just remember putting in so much work with all the applications applying to, you know, I even went to New York City because that's where I thought I wanted to work. And one of the people I met with was Suzanne. I made a lot of great connections, but, you know, sometimes things don't come out of it. So I actually think going there made me realize I didn't want to live there, which is good because you know, if I got hired somewhere, it would have been bad, but you know, I kind of pivoted towards Philly, somewhere I love, and I've been there for a while, and still love it. You know, that's where the communications firm I work with now is, and I just think I always remember how challenging it was, you know, getting that first job. I mean, my first job was even part-time. It wasn't even you know, a full-time position, but I was like, it's fine, because I was like, I'm going to work my way up to a full-time position, and, you know, just really, you know, going back to persevering, just really doing that, and remembering that just makes me appreciate what I have now.
Those are all very good examples. I also had to interview, I think, so many times, and then 3 times at the first place that I started before I got a job. So everyone can do it, just takes the right person. Any other questions? Yeah.
Do you have any advice for, like talking about your first salary with someone? I think it's such an awkward moment, and I don't think I've built up the confidence yet to be like, no, this is what I deserve. So I'm always like, they tell me like, oh, can you stay 4 extra hours today? And I'm like, yes, you don't even have to pay me, you know? But I think I can't be like that. So.
I think I was so happy, I agree with you, I was so happy to have a job when I graduated, because it was in the peak recession years. I probably said yes. I did not do a great job with my first salary negotiation. I would say you get practice with that. Does anyone have a good example of that? About one of their first jobs?
It's hard to know, because like that was also my question, but I would say go to Glassdoor, and it gives you pretty accurate average of the position that you're looking for in the city that you're trying to look for. And if it's similar to that, you can maybe push it a little bit, but it's depending on the person that you're talking to. You have to like know what the personality is for that person. Because for me, like I am good at reading people, so if I feel like it will go through, I will push it. If not, I try to kind of like step back a little bit. But I would say, so like definitely go off of average, but also if it's a little bit lower than the average, you can definitely say, I have XYZ internships and I think it'll be super valuable, and I really am very confident I can be great at your job, and like just try to push that confidence. I did that without, you know, like knowing that I was gonna get a little bit higher salary, but I ended up doing it. So, you know, and then they were like, okay, like, you know, we actually all loved you, so I think you deserve a little bit more. It wasn't that much, but it was a little bit more. So you can push it, but if it, I mean, they will not turn you down by asking for more. You know, they will maybe say, oh, that's a little bit out of our budget, but we can like maybe work it out and we'll get back to you. That's that's a no that they're gonna say maybe, but they're not gonna be like, oh, you asked for more money, therefore you're not gonna get the job. They're never gonna say that. So at least try, you know, softly, yeah.
Does that help answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Usually I would say like as you get more and more into your career, I mean, I don't know if it's like set, someone told me there's always 5 to 10 more on the table. But that's when you have experience, and it's tough when you're first starting out. So I think Serena made a great point, because when CNN called and said, we're gonna offer you a job, I was like, yes, great, when do I start? So I hear you. Anything else? All right. Well, it's just about, I'm a little bit past 6:30, so we appreciate everyone that came today. Feel free to LinkedIn us. We're all on LinkedIn, or come up to us. I know tomorrow I'll be 2:30 to 4:30. Where is the event tomorrow? At the Media Center, and I will be reviewing resumes, so come find me, tell your friends, tell your roomie, tell everyone. So thank you so much for coming. Thank you to our panel, and thank you to Mike and Tara, as always. Have a good night.